Howdy, Lake students. I am coming to you from the student lounge. It is 10:35 after we left Chick-fil-A. I remembered, I didn't upload the video like I told y'all I would. And then when I got to the church and started to upload the video, I discovered the audio did not actually transfer. So we got lots of video of me walking around going, and no audio whatsoever. We got audio of like half of the music. For whatever reason, it was cutting in and out. So I'm really sad about that too, because the band did so well tonight. They do every week. And so kudos to y'all. I got some video clips. I posted those on the social media. Go check those out. Anyway, tonight's lesson really seemed to impact y'all just tremendously. In some ways more than normal. And so I started to just say, no video. That's not a new thing. But I wanted to go ahead and do this, number one, because we committed to that. I want your parents to hear what we're sharing. That's really important to me, too. For some of y'all, I know you were taking notes furiously, and you might want to come back to that. And then there's a handful of y'all that didn't get to be here tonight that may very well want and need to hear this. This is the third part of our friendship series. But honestly, it might be the most important part. I told y'all that up front. Some of it's the not fun aspects of us looking at ourselves introspectively. The whole premise of the series is not, hey, what do we need to look for in friends, although that matters. It's what kind of friends do we need to be? Because we can't control other people and how they treat us. We have goals and ambitions and hopes. But at the end of the day, we're responsible for how we act and how we're following Jesus and how we're representing Christ in our friendships. And so this series really is geared towards what kind of friends do we need to be, and also what kind of friends do we want to pray for. So this is the third part. Part 2 is on last week. I may go back and re-record part 1 too, just so the series is complete. Nonetheless, here we go. Let's jump in. We'll see how long this takes us. I bet we do it faster here than we did in the loft. That was a little bit long tonight. Sorry about that. So we're starting in Proverbs chapter 6. This is a humdinger of a passage. So remember, we're going kind of back and forth on things we should do and not do. The thumbs down means don't do, right? So this one is no more gossip and backbiting. I learned from Lacey Frazier and Kylie Martin what the phrase "don't spill the tea," or rather spill the tea, means. In fact, it was at Chick-fil-A one Wednesday night. I don't remember what we were talking about, but they said, TJ, we're going to spill the tea. And I said, I don't like spilling tea. As long as it's sweet tea, don't spill it. Let me drink it, right? No. We're going to spill the tea. We're going to tell you what's going on. And so I learned that phrase. In fact, I learned it's pretty important not only to say spill the tea, but I'm going to spill the tea, sis. So when I said that tonight, lots of the girls looked at me like, you can't say that. So I do say that spilling the tea, it's not just a girl thing. That phrase might be a girl thing, but the idea of gossiping is absolutely across the board. We all do it. In fact, I had people raise their hands, and pretty much everybody admitted, yeah, I've shared something that I wasn't supposed to share. I've learned something I probably didn't know, and then I passed it on too. So gossip, if you don't understand it, really is simple. It's you sharing information that you didn't have permission to share. Whether it's sensitive or not, whether it's embarrassing or not, honestly is irrelevant. If you're sharing something about somebody else that you weren't given permission to share, you're gossiping. But most of the time, it is a pretty negative thing, right? It's when we are sharing secrets or vital information that most of the time, the reason why we do it is to make ourselves look better. Hey, can you believe so-and-so said this or did this, right? That's why we do it. Gossiping is a sin. Like, that's fairly easy. It's not hard to understand. It's definitely not loving. But check out what the Lord says in Proverbs chapter 6. And this really is both a great passage to know and also hard-hitting and painful. I'll probably drop these slides in the video so you can see them a little bit more clearly too. But start at verse 16. There are 6 things that the Lord hates, 7 that are an abomination to him. So right out the gate, you're like, oh my gosh, God hates stuff? Sure does. Love, by definition, forces us to hate things, right? Like it can't, like they're polar opposites, but they can't not exist with one another. But like love forces me to hate things as a result. So there are things that God hates, and FYI, it's stuff that tramples on love. Like, for instance, look at this. Haughty eyes. Haughty eyes. It's H-A-U-G-H-T-Y. Haughty, right? It's not talking about an Old Miss thing. Haughty. That means prideful. Eyes that are looking around at people. And notice this is important. Not a word is spoken. This is just my eyes. And the eyes I'm looking at people with. And they're eyes that are saying, I'm better than you. I'm prettier than you. I'm smarter than you. I never say these things. Just got them up here. But I'm better, I'm better, I'm better, I'm better. I'm more righteous. I'm more whatever than that person. This really is important because it's interesting to catch the fact that God obviously doesn't just care about what comes out of our mouth, doesn't just care about what we do with our hands. He cares deeply about what we think about and what we feel. Our emotions matter greatly. And so he says, actually, right out the gate, one of the things I hate, haughty eyes. So eyes that are just looking, not saying, eyes that are just looking at other people with distaste or disdain and just straight out judgment. I'm better than you. God says, don't do that, right? No more of that. But he doesn't stop there. Then he says the lying tongue. Okay, now we're getting into the stuff that we say. I asked the students tonight, and I still think this is true, is what do we generally lie about? Or rather, why do we lie? And there's really two reasons. Number one, we lie to get out of trouble, but also we lie frequently to make ourselves look better. In Texas, we call that exaggerating, right? It's, I didn't catch a fish this big, I caught a fish this big. I didn't catch or shoot a doe this big, I caught a buck this big, right? I didn't have a batting average of 250, I had a batting average of 285. My boy wasn't this cute, he was this cute, and so on. Like, we just exaggerate. It's not, it's not a full-blown lie. Actually, yes, it totally is a lie. Like, if it's not the truth, it's a lie. But it's one of those things that we justify. But we lie for two reasons. We lie to get ourselves out of trouble, or we lie to make ourselves look better. Especially we like to lie about other people, because when we lie about other people, that makes us look better. See how these two things tie together? So, haughty eyes, lying lips, keep going. Then he says, hands that shed innocent blood. That's not hard to understand. We're talking about murder. And at least in the teenage world, none of us have committed murder. Yay, thank you, God, for that. But I pose the question, is there more than one way to murder somebody outside of actually just ending their life? And actually, pretty quickly, most of the students said, for sure. We can murder people's reputations in no time fast. How do we do that? By lying, by being prideful, by just gossiping and so on. Okay, so you're seeing a theme here, and keep going. A heart that devises wicked plans. Again, God cares not only about what's going on outside of our mouths, God cares about our hearts and our minds. So the things you're thinking about, if you're an individual that's spending time thinking about ways to be devious, ways to be sinful, ways to be tricky, ways to make yourself look better, not talking about acting on it, just thinking about it. A heart that devises evil plan. God says, man, I hate that. But then he doesn't stop there. He says also, feet that make haste to run to evil. So not only are you making the plans, but now you're running full bore towards this evil thing that you should not be doing. Turns out, and you all know this, if you spend a lot of time thinking about doing something, you end up doing that thing, right? That's not hard to understand. I suspect you've all been there. I certainly have. What consumes our minds is what ends up being our actions several times over. So God hates all these things. And then he says, a false witness who breathes out lies. Man, didn't he already say something about lies? Sure did. So in this list of 7, if he brings up lying twice, how do we think God feels about lies? Well, he's already said he hates it. He really hates lying. I told you about one of my professors, Dr. Slayton, used to make the statement to us in class all the time. He says, guys, you are never more like the devil than when you lie. Oh man, it's got us every time because I'm constantly thinking, dude, I don't know how many times I lie. And sometimes it's just that exaggerating thing. I'm not necessarily lying to get myself out of trouble, not necessarily lying to put anybody else down. I'm just lying to make me look cool because, well, I don't have a lot to work with. I need to lie to make myself look cool. Doesn't matter. You're never more like the devil when you lie. So why would he say that? It's simple. Remember how the devil is described by God himself. The devil is known as the father of lies. That's what he does. From the beginning, it's what he does. We're acting like the devil will lie. So the Lord hates that. But then the last one is the one ultimately that I want you all to catch. He says, one who sows discord amongst the brothers. Sows discord amongst the brothers. Now, sows is not a word, S-O-W-S. It's not a word we really use, right? Because to my knowledge, nobody in the youth group is a farmer. having grown up in a farming community, I can tell you exactly what sowing is. We would go sow cottonseed. Literally, you take the seed, plant it in the ground, grows a cob. That's sowing seed, right? So people who sow discord's another word for disunity, just people who sow disunity amongst the brotherhood, and God hates that. Notice the brotherhood, talking about fellow believers. Oh, so we're not talking about like the heathens running around. We're talking to God's people. We sure are. God hates it when we sow discord amongst each other, when we seek to find ways to make people fight. Now, truthfully, sometimes that's kind of fun to lob a little grenade and watch people bicker, right? And it's just a twisted part of our hearts, but that's what we do. They're over there arguing. This is pretty amusing. But God doesn't find it funny. And if you're in the midst of that battle, you don't find it particularly funny either, regardless of whether it was meant as a joke or not. And that's going to come up a lot. I didn't mean that. That's just a joke. I'm just playing, right? It's not playing. God doesn't think it's playing either. When we do things to get people to argue or bicker, or certainly if we're seeking to divide someone else, and sometimes we do that because, hey, like, I don't want you to be their friend. I want you to be my friend. I don't want you to be as close to them as you are to me. And so if I can do something just to put a little bit of space in between you, then that's okay. God hates that. Man, he wants us to be unified, wants us to be together, seeking him together, no less too. And these are heavy, heavy verses. Why do I bring it up again? When you're an individual that's gossiping, you're doing all sorts of that 7 all in one, but especially gossip inevitably leads people to disliking someone else. Because that's the general idea. I'm sharing something juicy about somebody else just to maybe make me look important, make me look smart, make me look in the know, but also make me look better than that person. Is gossip kind of a big deal? It's a very big deal. In fact, it's a big industry. I brought up, there's entire magazines and newspapers, which y'all don't read magazines and newspapers. So entire websites, entire social media pages, that's all it does is just rumors about celebrities and people that we're interested in, right? And it slings that stuff around. And if they don't have any new information, it just makes stuff up because we know it will click it, and thus they get money off of it. And how do you think God feels about that? Not only are you doing this thing that I hate, but you're making money off of it too. It's awful. So we ought to be thinking about whether we're making money or not. Like if I'm garnering any kind of extra attention or fame or whatever, this is a problem. I don't ever want to profit from sin. That's what God says it is. So keep going. It's still in relation to gossip and backbiting. We haven't talked about backbiting yet. That's just that idea of revenge. You said something to me, and so instead of me being gracious, whether you meant to be rude to me or not, I'm going to fire right back at you, right? Literally, I'm going to bite back at you. Check out this passage. A gossip betrays a confidence. This is Proverbs 20:19. A gossip that betrays a confidence. Avoid anyone who talks too much. Wait. It didn't say avoid anyone who talks rudely. Avoid anyone who talks too much. Lots and lots of words. You don't know anybody like that, do you? Yeah, TJ, you've already been talking for 13 minutes and we're still on the second verse. I do talk a lot. And part of my job is to communicate. But we all know people who talk quite a bit. There are several of us in the youth group who talk quite a bit. Talking in and of itself is not a problem. The idea is we're supposed to be really, really careful with our words. The issue is the more words you use, the more prone you are to foul up. The more words you use, the more prone you are to say or do something sinful and cause harm and pain and do some of that stuff we talked about from Proverbs chapter 6. So frequently in Proverbs, the idea is given that, hey, it's better to just be quiet instead of saying something foolish. So just be quiet. We need to talk less. That's not easy, right? There's also, and it didn't, there it is right there, passage from Matthew chapter 12, verses 30 through 37. I do want to flip to that. Man, this one hits you like a ton of bricks. And then we'll start to move a little bit faster. But we got to catch this one. This is Jesus speaking. All the scripture is Jesus speaking, but like this came out of Jesus's mouth while he was here on earth. Starting at verse 33, it says, either make the tree good and its fruit good, or make the tree bad and its fruit bad. For a tree is known by its fruit. This is where everybody goes, cool, I like fruit. I want good fruit, not bad fruit. Nobody buys bad fruit. Fruit's not the point. Keep going. You brood of vipers. I don't like snakes. I don't want to be called a snake either. But Jesus calls people snakes here. How can you speak good when you are evil? For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Ugh. What does that mean? When you say something wicked, when you say something cruel, when you say something mean, intentionally, specifically, not like you inadvertently, like you didn't mean to be rude to someone, particularly like if there's any language barriers, like I didn't mean to be insulting there, like that happens. But when you intentionally are rude to somebody, you don't need to go, I didn't mean to, I didn't mean it that way. Jesus is saying that wasn't a mistake, that came out of your heart and out your lips. And notice he says, out of the abundance of your heart. So it's not even like you just had a little bit of your heart that's kind of wicked and whoop, that slipped out. Out of the abundance of heart. So there's a whole bunch of junk that's in your heart, and that's what brewed out. That's the stuff that you couldn't keep contained out of you. That's what came out of your mouth. So FYI, if you're someone who's frequently backbiting or cutting either people down or gossiping or being rude or just all sorts of junk coming out of your mouth, profanities, adjectives, whatever, it's not a mistake. It's not a bad habit. It is a sign of a wicked heart that we desperately need Jesus to clean up. And FYI, we all need that every single day. That's one of the things we have to be praying actively is, Lord, man, would you guard my heart, not only my tongue, but Lord, would you clean my heart so that what comes out is actually pure and holy and edifying and encouraging to you, like we talked about a couple weeks. But he doesn't stop there. Keep going. He says, verse 36, this is the big one. I tell you, on the day of judgment, people will give an account for every careless word they speak. For by your words you'll be justified, and by your words you'll be condemned. It's that phrase, every careless word will be judged. When I stand before Jesus someday and the books of my life are opened up, he's not just going to go, man, TJ, you were not the best husband. You were not the best dad. He's going to say, man, you just ran your mouth a lot. You were cocky sometimes, but you just jabbered like a monkey aimlessly. And you said a whole bunch of stuff that was neither edifying or discouraging. You just didn't shut up sometimes. Why is that a big deal? Silence is helpful, guys. Silence is what allows people to hear from God himself as opposed to all the other noise that's going on around us. So part of our silence can help other people. There are plenty of times when we need to speak up, but part of our silence genuinely helps other people hear from the Lord. But God's going to judge all of our words. That's a really, really sobering thought. So when it comes to our friendships, truly, Jesus, would you cleanse my heart? Jesus, would you guard my tongue? Jesus, would you teach me to speak about other people in encouraging ways? Won't you please, 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 please help me to not be someone who's constantly just trying to make myself look good at the expense of other people. All right, keep going. This one's pretty easy. Treat your friends like gold. This is one of the thumbs up, right? Treat your friends like gold. This is Matthew chapter 7, verse 12. Pretty much everybody knows this verse, but it really is important. He says this, so in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you, for this sums up the law and the prophets. The reason why I say treat your friends like gold, we call this the golden rule. I meant to look up when we actually started calling it the golden rule, because it works, I don't mind it, but really it's just, man, these are the words of the king, right? Like Jesus himself taught us to be this way. And what I love about this passage is it's proactive, it's not reactive. Let me say that again. This passage is proactive, it's not reactive. Why does that matter? When you are interacting with your friends, or your enemies for that matter, the aim is not to treat people the way they treated you. The aim is to treat people the way you want them to treat you. Now, we're going to talk about motive in a second. Motive matters. So the goal can't just be, okay, I'm going to treat you nice, you treat me nice. We'll come back to that. What we are commanded by King Jesus to do is to treat people the way that we want them treated. So nobody wants to be treated like garbage, right? Nobody wants to be treated poorly. No one wants to be treated carelessly or thoughtlessly. I want to be treated well. I'd like to be respected. In fact, I would like to have a pat on the back from time to time, right, from my friends. And so if that's what I'm longing for, those are the things that I have to be doing for other people. So it means to treat your friends like gold. Now, the question is, do we always do that? And the answer is no. Again, sometimes we like to toss grenades. Sometimes we like to, I'm just joking, and say rude things just because we're playing around. Come back to it though, man. Those things, they hurt. They absolutely hurt. Now, here's the big part of this. This line right here. By the way, this isn't just for your friends. This is how we're supposed to treat everybody. This is actually a across-the-board command. We're supposed to treat everybody the way we want to be treated. Why do I bring it up like this way? Here's the important catch. If we don't learn how to treat our friends properly, we will never treat our enemies the right way. We will never treat just random strangers well. I made the challenge to you tonight. I'll say this again here because I really do think it matters. Girls, if you are dating a guy who does not treat his mother and his sisters well, he will never treat you properly. He might for a time, because FYI, people lie and they hide stuff to get what we want, right? But he will never treat you the way you ought to be treated if he can't treat his mom and his sisters properly. He won't. And yes, you can flip it the other way too. Guys, your girl will never treat you with respect and be kind and gracious to you and helpful to you if they can't be those things at home with their fathers or the brothers. And the reason why I say this is that's our training ground. You can extend it out a little bit further, right? If you go to church with someone who's rude to everyone they go to church with, but they're really sweet to you, it's going to fall apart at some point because our training ground where we learned how to treat people is going to come out. It just will. So you want to look for friends who are certainly and especially treating their family incredibly well. But again, the onus is on us. So I want to be the kind of person that treats, starting with my family, I want to treat them kindly and affirmingly and just seek to bless, starting with your parents, then yes, your siblings, that matters, and then your friends, and then absolutely, no, actually, next is the family of God, then your friends. Those aren't necessarily always the same thing, right? They need to be. And then, as we learn to treat all those people properly, it becomes a whole lot easier to treat others that aren't part of the family of God, and aren't even sometimes folks that we would call friends. In fact, we might even call them their enemies, because Jesus also calls us to love our enemies too, right? But that becomes significantly easier if we learn how to do that with our family and with the family of God. It's a big, big deal. Now, motive issue. Do not think to yourself, okay, I want people to love me. I want people to respect me. I want people to treat me well. So if I do that with everyone else, they're automatically going to love me. I hope that happens, but that can't be your motive. The motive has to be, okay, Jesus, you have loved me in this way. You came to earth and you treated a whole bunch of people, all of whom the scriptures say all of us were God's enemies, because none of us were following him, none of us were obeying him. In fact, we frequently, even while Jesus was on the cross, people were sinning. While he was paying for our sins, people were sinning. Imagine that. And yet he still gave us an absurd amount of love and grace and compassion and kindness and so many more things. That's how Jesus treated us. Since Jesus is my king, and since this is the commandment he gave me, and number 3, this is the example he gave me, I want to treat people this way. Regardless of how they treat me. That's not the point. Would I like that? Yes, I want people to be kind to me. But even if they don't, I'm doing this because my King and my Lord and my Savior, the boss of my life, has said, treat other people the way you want to be treated. That's our motive. That's important. Keep rolling. FOMO. We had a lot of fun talking about FOMO tonight. I even asked, hey, what does FOMO mean? And nobody in the room seemed to not know what that meant. It's the fear of missing out. There's some fun slides here. I really like the little cartoon here, and it's these two characters talking about, hey, man, let's hang out this weekend. Sure, well, no, I don't have any time this weekend. How about next weekend? I'd love to. It's just, I'm all booked up. What about the next month? Yeah, and then there's 2 tombstones. They couldn't ever get it together. That's sad. But that's not the kind of FOMO that I've seen play out specifically amongst the youth group. And yeah, I kind of got on to y'all tonight, and I did it in love, but I've been around you long enough that I've watched this happen. Here's how things happen. Somebody contacts somebody else. Hey, let's hang out this weekend. And I'd love to hang out this weekend. Okay, well, let's make a plan. Oh, we'll do that later on so the weekend gets closer. It's Tuesday right now. Let's wait and see what happens on Friday. And you're stringing each other along, and sometimes the plans happen. Yeah, let's get together, yay. And other times it's, no, we can't hang out. Not all the time. But I have watched you do this frequently, where someone's waiting for a better offer. My father-in-law likes to call it friend upgrading. I'm talking to you right now, but I'd really rather be talking to somebody else. So sometimes this happens at Chick-fil-A, right? Or even at youth group. There's a group of people conversing over here, then somebody else walks in the door, and a group of people leave this circle here that's having a great conversation to go, hey, somebody's here. Now, part of me loves that. Like, I want everybody to be welcomed like that when they come in the loft. And I wish that were true. It's not always true. Some people walk in and nobody notices, which is sad. We got to work on that. But y'all are actually pretty amazing and welcome each other. I love that. But nonetheless, there's things we can work on. But I've seen this play out a lot, guys, where people will make plans. They'll say, hey, we're going to hang out. And then the hangout doesn't happen. And I've had this conversation with several of you where I thought we were going to hang out, and then they canceled on me. And then later on, I'm on Instagram scrolling, and I see photos of that person hanging out with other people. And it hurts. Like, it genuinely hurts. FOMO is what drives that. I've seen this play out with church stuff too, by the way. Yeah, I'd like to go on that mission trip. It sounds kind of cool, and I think I'm open, but I don't know. We're going to see what else happens on spring break, and maybe or maybe not, or maybe this summer, or D-Now might be cool, but there may be something else pop up. Sometimes you sign up for these events and then you back out of those events because something else came up. And not just sports. Sometimes it's just people, right? It's FOMO. It's the fear of missing out. I don't want to miss out on this thing, so I can't commit to this thing. We got to lose the FOMO, man. It's wrecking relationships. It's also not good for your heart either. It's causing all sorts of anxiety. And the Lord's given us so much for us to enjoy right here and now. Jesus literally said, don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about what you're missing out. Enjoy these things that I've given you right now. Here's why FOMO is a problem, most specifically in relation to what we were talking about. And it actually follows up with our previous point. Treat people the way that you want to be treated, right? If you're the person making the hangout invite and you're getting strung along, does that feel good? No, of course not. In fact, it really, really hurts. And it hurts even more so when you find out later on, oh, they canceled our plans, or they didn't confirm our plans because they wanted to hang out over here with these other people or do this other thing. Now, I'm not talking about situations where mom and dad said, hey, no, it's family time, or there's a legitimate family emergency, or you already actually had other plans, and so you can't commit to this. But I'm talking about those times when, maybe I'll do this or maybe I'll not. I'm just going to see what happens. That really can cause division and pain and significant hurt. And it's not the way that you want to be treated. So we got to stop doing that. So check out this verse. This really is important. Above all, this is James chapter 5. Above all, my brothers, don't swear, not by heaven or by earth or by anything else. Let your yes be yes and your no be no, or you will be condemned. Pastor Eric's going to be talking about that this weekend, I bet, because we're getting to James chapter 5. But think about that. Do you want to hang out? I do. Okay, let's do that. Like, if we were just people of integrity and people of our word, imagine how much better. And we've already got pretty great friendships. Imagine how much sweeter our friendships were if we would just do the things that we tell people that we're going to do. Truly, that would be super cool. So let's drop FOMO. Let's drop dragging people out and along and enjoy one another and take advantage of these incredible relationships God's given us right here. Let's keep going. How do your friends affect you and change you? Now, this is a group conversation. You're not here to converse with me about this, but I do want you to think about this. Truly, like, when you're around your people, how do they affect your thinking and your actions and, gosh, even your emotions, right? We had some fun conversations, and some people got brutally honest. I'm this way with some people, and I'm this way with other people. That sound like a problem? Yeah, that's a problem for sure. I've done that too. And by the way, there's a reason for that. We're about to see that from the scriptures. But truly, I want you to think, take a second, even right now. If you have to pause the video, that's fine. But think about your friendships, certainly your closest friendships. How do those people affect you? Is it for the positive? Is it for the negative? Check out these verses. I want you to think about, not just how do people affect you, but how do you affect other people? Which of these two people are you? Are you the person on the left? Let your light so shine before others that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. That's Matthew chapter 5, verse 16. Are you the individual that when you come around, people act differently? People see God's glory and thus seek to give him honor and praise. And I know I can't say it doesn't ever work out that cleanly. It does. Sometimes it takes time. Sometimes people go, you're an idiot, right? Like that, like you're dumb for serving God. That's not what we're talking about. But just simply put, do you raise the morality level of the people you're hanging out with? Or is it the other way around? This passage from 1 Corinthians 15:33, don't be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. I bet your parents have said that to you. My parents still say that to me. Praise God, right? Bad company corrupts good character. FYI, that's in the New Testament and the Old Testament, right? This has been true for a very, very long time. Simply put, the people you hang out with will affect your personality, your thoughts, and your emotions. And you know this, you've experienced this. And some, again, admitted this tonight. I'm kind of this way with this group of people, and I'm this way with other group of people. I'm more prone to pop off and say things I shouldn't say over here, and I'm more prone to fly right when I'm over here. And I experienced both sides of the equation. I told y'all tonight about even when I was in high school, even before I became a pastor. Remember, I started pastoring when I was 17, so my senior year I was a pastor. But even before then, though, because I was somebody that didn't cuss, like at all, it reached a point where the guys, even in the locker room, tended to not cuss as much around me. Now, as much. There was a handful of guys that wouldn't cuss at all around me because they wanted to be disrespectful, right? My stands, and it's not like I was like, running around, hey, language, stop saying that way. I was just living my life, but there was something about the way that I was living my life that was causing them to go, I don't want to disrespect TJ. Girls, you can do this. There are, if you carry yourself in such a way, guys will not say disrespectful things to you. Again, I'm not saying across the board, not saying everybody, but a lot of guys will elevate the things that they say and do around you by how you live. We have that ability. It's a really, really cool thing the Lord does. But on the flip side, if you're not a person of strong character and you're hanging out with people that have even less character, when you get around those folks, they are going to drag you down, so to speak. They're going to cause you to think and do and say things that you probably wouldn't do in a normal circumstance. So think about who you're hanging out with, but more so, again, what kind of person are you? How do you affect those around you? It's a big question. All right, here's your bonus. This is another don't, but I think this is kind of a big one. Don't be around the hulks. Keep clear of the hulks. What are you talking about, TJ? So we did Trilogy Day, almost 2 months ago now, right? And we watched the Avengers movie, and the first Avengers is so good. But I love that scene with Dr. Banner. Just as they're getting ready to go to battle, Dr. Banner shows up, just Dr. Banner, not the Hulk, right? Dr. Banner shows up. He's on that little moped thing, rides up. Hey, guys, what's going on? This is awful. Yeah, man, it's time to fight. We could really use a Hulk right now. Dr. Banner says, okay, I'm in. And then he looks at one of those giant flying worm things coming at him. And Captain America says to him, hey, it would be good to get angry right now. And Dr. Banner says, that's my secret. I'm always angry. And then he hulks out and punches the worm thing, and the battle's on, right? It's just awesome. It's Hulk smash the whole rest of the movie. And he has maybe the funniest scene of the whole movie when he smashes Loki, right? That's really still makes me laugh to this day. Now, outside of the Incredible Hulk when he's a good guy, you want to steer clear of the Hulks. What am I talking about? Look at this verse. A patient person shows great understanding, but a quick-tempered person promotes foolishness. That's Proverbs 14, verse 29. What's going on here? If you are hanging around with people who are quick-tempered, Notice what he says. Quick-tempered person promotes foolishness. You gotta ask the question tonight. You know anybody like that's just angry all the time? Or maybe not angry, maybe they're just disgruntled all the time. They complain all the time. Nothing's ever good about it. At first, it's just kind of annoying, but if you hang around that person long enough, you end up doing the same thing, don't you? Man, we should just, I don't like this. We should just, ignore it or storm out and do our own thing. And at first you go, no, that's dumb. And then it starts to make sense. And then all of a sudden, turns into you're the person who's complaining constantly and never sees any good in the situation. Angry people. Now, actual angry people, like that's just dangerous. You don't want to be around those people. They can lead to even more foolishness. But even just people that are just disgruntled all the time and nothing's ever good enough, that does affect your mindset dynamically. So the Lord says, steer clear of them, right? But keep going. It says a gentle answer, this is Proverbs 15, verse 1. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but harsh words stir up anger. Remember, onus is on us. What are we doing? Gentle answer turns away wrath. So if you're around that person that's constantly angry, our job in that situation, in order to be a good friend, is to go, hey, this isn't so bad. Actually, this is kind of cool. You're going to, quote unquote, find the silver lining in the situation. And admittedly, that can be hard to do at times. But find something constructive and something positive and something encouraging to say. Because when you do, frequently, that's going to curb that anger in that other person. It's going to calm them down. And that leaves both of you in a better place. However, if you give a harsh response, that just stirs up that anger. Remember, anger leads to foolishness. Anger causes you to say and do and think things that never ends well. If you stay angry all the time, you're going to end up hulking out on someone, whether it's physically or verbally or who knows what. So watch out for the hulk, steer clear of them. And even more so, you be the type of individual that's seeking to give that soft answer to calm people down. Actually, going back to the Hulk, it's kind of like that little lullaby that sits in Avengers, the second Avengers. Right? Maybe you don't have to necessarily touch somebody's hand, but say something soothing, something calming to get people to chill out. That makes everybody's world better. All right, we're wrapping up here. Let's talk about King David and King David's friends, Uriah and Jonathan. We're going to do a juxtaposition on two very big friendships. I've got a series of verses here, but I'm just going to tell you this story. I think that's what's best here. But do look up these verses, and I think everything I'm going to tell you about is coming from these passages. Y'all know King David. You know he's most famous for. He's the guy who slayed Goliath. But he had a best friend named Jonathan. Jonathan, by the way, that's what J and TJ means. Jonathan is my namesake. My mama named me Jonathan after Jonathan in the Bible, which is kind of cool, right? Jonathan was David's best friend, and there was a reason for that. FYI, Jonathan was probably 10 to 15 years older than David. Remember, David was 13 to 15 years old whenever he, number one, was anointed king, which is super fun. It really is kind of that I just can't wait to be king Simba moment, right? Like he got Simba, right? They literally anointed his head with oil, kind of like Rafiki going, whoa, Mufasa. But more importantly, whenever he became king, he was just this little boy, truthfully, and then he slayed Goliath. And there was this dude named Jonathan that said, that's my guy. I want to be friends with that guy. Now, it's not just because David suddenly became a super famous human. It's because of something that happened in Jonathan's life previously. Jonathan's the oldest son of King Saul. If he's the oldest son, that means he's a prince. If he's the oldest son and he's a prince, that means he's supposed to be king, because that's what happens. When a king dies, oldest son becomes king, right? So you would think, number one, he's going to be super careful. Number two, he's going to be really protected because he's the prince. And number three, he's not going to let anybody get in his way of that situation. But that was not how Jonathan rolled. There was one day where there was a battle preparing between the Philistines and the Israelites. And they're literally standing on two opposite sides of a valley from one another. So the Israelites over here, Philistines are over here. Jonathan's over here with his armor bearer. Armor bearer is literally just a guy. His job is to carry the armor of whatever upper level position that particular person is. Not everybody got an armor bearer. If you're a prince, you're a king, you get an armor bearer. Congratulations. It's kind of like having a caddy in golf. They're going to carry your clubs. The armor bearer is going to carry your sword until it's time for you to use your sword. They're going to hand you the sword and you go do your thing. Jonathan looks at his armor bearer and says, hey, the Philistines are over there on the other side of the valley. You see them? He says, yeah, I see them. Let's go get them. Now, it's a battalion of Philistines. There's about 20 of them. Jonathan's one dude with one armor bearer. I don't know that the armor bearer actually fights any. But he says, let's go get them. So they climb down the cliff, go into the valley. When they're in the valley, that means everybody can see them. So they've now set themselves up to be seen, not only seen, but they're also vulnerable. There are bows and arrows and rocks and everything else. Then they get to the other side of the valley and they climb up on the valley, up on the cliff. And while they're doing this, Jonathan says, okay, here's the plan. We're going to lift our head up. And when I lift my head up, if they say, hey, come up here and fight, we're going to go up there and fight them. And if they start talking trash, we're going to duck our heads and go back. This will be how we discern the will of God. This is a really dumb way to discern the will of God. That's what he did. FYI, it's going to spoil alert. It's going to end well. But still, this is pretty silly. I want you to catch that, though. He climbs up, gophers his head up, looks like a prairie dog. Hey, I want to fight. And the Philistine says, come on up here and fight. Jonathan climbs up. All they had to do was walk up and just kick him off. Fight over, but they don't. They say, all right, come up here and fight. Jonathan gets up, armor bearer, hands him his sword. Jonathan kills 20 Philistines by himself. That's crazy. It's almost as crazy as a 15-year-old boy walking up to a 9-foot giant and say, hey, I'm going to slay you in God's name. And David does. David did that in front of all the soldiers who were too scared to fight. Jonathan, the prince, saw it. And when the battle was over, Jonathan says, that's my guy. And in the scriptures, it's really cool. It says when they met, their hearts were tied together. They were, don't hear soulmates because that makes it sound like it's a romantic, and it wasn't a romantic thing. This was a genuine, awesome, incredible relationship. They had things in common that were very clear. Their dedication to the Lord was complete. And they just meshed well. They immediately hit it off. So now the prince of Israel isn't planning on being the next king. He actually makes the statement, David, you're going to be the next king, and I'm going to be your right-hand man. Man, I support you. I've got your back. You're my dude. Let's do this. Flash forward some years. Jonathan dies in battle. Essentially, he gets murdered. It was a battle, but it wasn't good, right? Jonathan dies. At David's funeral, David writes this poem that he reads at the funeral. David's an amazing poet. That's what most of the Psalms are, right? And David actually makes the statement. He says, hey, man, Jonathan, his love meant more to me than the love of a woman. Now, that scripture frequently gets interpreted as like, oh, see, Jonathan and David were gay. No, not even a little bit. Not even kind of. Both of them were married, happily married. In fact, David liked the ladies a little bit too much. But nonetheless, he meant, man, your love was so encouraging to me. I have learned how to love God more. I've learned how to follow God better. You make me better. We're tight. They had this incredible friendship that was super cool. I've got a friend like that. And really, like the two of us hit up really my best friend on planet Earth. His name's Josh. He and his wife and kids, they live in Louisville. They lived in Wisconsin for a while. So sometimes you may remember it. Occasionally me and my family, we would go up to Wisconsin, disappear for a few days. Now we've gone up to Louisville a couple of days. We're going to see my best friend, Josh. He's a pastor. He was in the Army for a while. When Josh and I met, it was truly divine. Like we just immediately hit it off. I've got plenty of friends, but I've never had a friend like Josh. I don't know that I'll ever have a friend like Josh again. That's why I call him my best friend. Whenever we get together, it's not even like there was any time that's passed. We just immediately go right back. We minister side by side together, which is really cool. We get to work at the same church together. That was awesome. We love meat. We love movies. We love being dads. It's just like everything about it works. It's really, really cool. He can encourage me and calm me down. I can encourage him and calm him down. We affirm each other in dynamic ways. It's amazing. The only relationship I know that's even tighter is the relationship that my wife and his wife have together. And it was pretty funny. Not long after Josh and I met, we decided we wanted to hang out. We went, hey, let's get our family together. They've got 3 kids. I've got 3 kids. They've got 2 sons. I've got 2 sons. I've got 1 daughter. I got 1 daughter. Like this is cool. Let's get together and hang out. Now our wives had met, but not really. And so we played a trick on them. We said, hey, we're going to go to Tucson. It's about an hour up the road. We're going to go to Tucson and go check out some stuff. We'll drive up in our 2 vans and it'll be great. We met at a gas station. And after we pumped gas, this was Josh and I's plan. I went to Becca and said, hey, you're going to go ride in Stephanie's van and the boys are going to come over here. And Becca went, I don't know what, I don't even know this girl. Why would you, oh, you're so mean. But she listened. She went and jumped in the van. Cadence jumped in the van. They hung out over there. Boys are with me. We drive to Tucson. We're just having a great time. By the time we got to Tucson, Becca and Stephanie were even better friends than Josh and I were. Man, God just, again, tied their hearts together in a really, really beautiful way. And to this day, we still talk all the time. It's great. And even when we don't talk, man, we're just there. This was David and Jonathan. David had a phenomenal friendship, and he knew how to be a great friend too. Now, let's compare that with his other friend, Uriah. Uriah was this guy who I like to say was part of David's secret service. There was this period in between when David became king, when David had slayed Goliath and before he became king, where he was kind of on the run. King Saul wanted to kill him. He hated his guts. Jonathan was helping protect him. But literally, David's just on the run. And while he's on the run, he keeps gathering these guys that are kind of scallywags, like just these ruffians, these not normal human beings, but they were drawn to David. They thought David was cool, and so David started gathering friends. Uriah was one of those guys. Not all of them, by the way, were Israelites. Uriah was not an Israelite. But they became his best friends. They became his protectors. They became his secret service, and they were all very committed to David being the king. When David finally became the king, they became even closer to him. They were the ones that went out and led the battles because they had already won a lot of battles for him. This was a tight-knit group of dudes, super close. Uriah was one of those guys. Well, finally, it reached a point where David had been king for a while. And David says, you know what, fellas, I'm getting kind of old. Y'all go to war. I'm going to stay here. I'm the king. Like, I'm going to just stay here and make sure things are cool in Israel. Y'all go fight. And everyone says, of course, you're the king. We love you, trust you. Peace out. We'll see you in a little bit. David stays behind. Some of you know this story. It says one afternoon, David is walking along the roof of his palace, and he looks out and he sees this beautiful woman taking a bath. And he starts to watch her, and he watches her, and he even calls some of his servants. Hey, fellas, see that lady down there? She's pretty hot, isn't she? Yes, sir. Yeah, she's beautiful. Who is that? I'm pretty sure that's Bathsheba, sir. Oh, yeah. Awesome. Tell her to come up to my house. And she comes up to his house, and they have sex. Now, again, this gets interpreted a lot that David raped her. There is nothing in the scriptures that say David raped. This was a consensual thing. But nonetheless, these two have sex. A little while later, she comes back to him, says, hey, David, I'm pregnant now. This was Bathsheba. I'm pregnant. David says, no sweat. I'll take care of it. David sends a message to his general, and he says, hey, general, I need you to send Uriah to the front of the battle. Uriah? Wait. Uriah. Who's that name? Oh, yeah, one of my Secret Service guys. Send him to the front of the battle. And whenever he starts fighting in the battle, pull away from him. Let him die. Now, when I was telling this story in the youth room tonight, a bunch of people went, oh my gosh, because they know this story, but they didn't know this part of the story. And this really is significant, guys. Uriah goes to fight for David. He dies. Word comes back to David. Okay, Uriah's dead, just like you asked. David feigns sadness, and then he contacts Bathsheba and says, hey, sorry about your husband. You want to get married? She does. She comes. They have a baby. And they tried to keep it secret for about a year. Didn't work. God didn't let him keep that secret. But here's why I tell you that story. This is significant. Guys, do not think for even a second that you aren't capable of being an awful, awful friend. This is the haughty part of us. Right now, I would never do something like that. This is the guy that God says is, David's a man after my own heart. And he did this. Not only did he have adultery, but he had a child out of wedlock. That child died, and 3 more of his children died as a result of his sin. And a civil war broke out in Israel because of his actions. All because of this guy who had an incredible friendship, just made some bad decisions. And the reverberations were huge. In some ways, we still feel them to this day. Don't think for even a second that you are incapable of doing all of the things we've talked about in the series. You are. we've got to beg God, please, Lord, in Jesus' name, would you continue to bear fruit in our lives? Would you continue to teach me what it means to be a good, godly friend? Would you teach me to be what it means to be a good follower of you? Would you help me to bless those around me so that they see the things that you're helping me do and that they glorify you? Help me to love people like you do. That's what it means to be godly friends. So pray to that end. Pray that God sends you godly people in your life, but pray that we would be those kind of godly people that he wants us to be. Guys, I love y'all. Thank you for listening. Later, partners.